Hello, MCU fans! So today we're going to talk about Spider-Man the Animated Series. Remember, it had 5 awesome seasons back in the 90s, but it ended with a huge cliffhanger. Well, now, years later, we are finally going to get that cliffhanger resolved in a 4-issue comic miniseries coming out soon. So we're going to talk about everything you need to know to prepare yourself for this comic series. Now, there will be spoilers for the animated show, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have an August contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check it out in case you're interested. Plus, hang around to the end of the video, and I'll talk about the Doomsday Countdown rewatch on the Discord. Alright, so as I mentioned, the animated series ran for 5 years and had 65 episodes, and then suddenly was canceled. And we were all like, wait, there's a cliffhanger. You can't do this to us. So let's talk first about why it was canceled. This is a really interesting Facebook post from John Semper Jr., who was a writer and producer on the animated show. And so someone asked him, I think I remember the reason Spider-Man got canceled. Was Ari Arad upset with Fox somehow? I thought I read that somewhere. Well, he says Fox contracted for 65 episodes, and that's exactly what we did. Now, Fox hated Avi almost from day one, so nothing much changed there. It didn't help, but it wasn't the reason we weren't picked up for more episodes. New World, who actually produced the show, had gone out of business, so there was nobody to pay for whatever costs Fox wouldn't cover, and most shows rarely even made it to 65 episodes. So the feeling was we were done, and that was enough. Spider-Man wasn't canceled, it ran its full course. Okay, so I do like that explanation, but still, we were left with a huge cliffhanger, which now finally is going to get resolved. So I have done timeline videos for both X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series. So on the top is X-Men, bottom is Spider-Man, and in the middle is any time one of the two characters showed up in each other's shows. It's also worth noting that X-Men 97 also left us with a cliffhanger on the original show, and that was finally resolved with the 4-issue comic run and X-Men 97 Season 1. And in fact, we saw that Spider-Man, as well as Mary Jane herself, showed up in X-Men 97 Season 1. So the question now is, how was the cliffhanger resolved? In fact, I'm going to go ahead and add in Spider-Man 94, issues 1 through 4, and I'll have a timeline for those as they come out, but I can't wait to finally learn how that cliffhanger was resolved. So now we're going to talk about everything you need to know from seasons 1 through 5 of the animated series, particularly regarding Peter and MJ, and of course, the cliffhanger. So we're going to start all the way back in Season 1, Episode 3, where Peter is having his first date with Mary Jane. Aunt May's saying, Peter, I hope you're getting ready for your first date with Mary Jane Watson tonight. And of course, when she shows up, we get the famous, face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. All right, so then in Season 2, Episode 3, we learn that MJ had some regrets because in high school, she dated Maury Bench, a.k.a. Hydro Man. She says his name was Maury Bench, and I'm embarrassed to say I used to date him in high school. Well, of course, this is the same episode where Hydro Man attacks, but by the end of the episode, after a battle with Spider-Man, he actually evaporates away. It was a crazy ending to the episode. Oh, but he's not gone. We'll learn more about him later. So then we jump to Season 2, Episode 7, and we see Peter starting to, neglect MJ. She's saying, you've been avoiding me for days. So then we see by Season 3, Episode 8, that MJ started dating and even got engaged to Harry Osborn. Oh my. She says, listen, Peter, all my life, men have let me down. And Harry's different, though. He gives me a lot of attention. But Peter just goes right to the heart of the issue and says, but do you love him? So sure enough, after thinking about it, she approaches Harry later in that episode and says, hey, I'll call you later. I need to clear my head. And notice she gives back the engagement ring. And then before long, she's talking to Spider-Man, who at this point she does not know is Peter Parker. And she says, there's somebody else I think I'm really in love with. So yeah, things are looking back up for their relationship. However, in Season 3, Episode 14, the Green Goblin discovers Spider-Man's identity. He says, what? The Green Goblin's greatest foe is a mere boy? And you can see it just drives him nuts. So he decides he's going to get revenge on Spider-Man and Peter Parker by kidnapping Mary Jane and taking her, well, you know where, on top of the George Washington Bridge, the same place that Gwen Stacy was killed by the Goblin in the comics. So notice, Spider-Man is saying everything's going to be fine, but it turns out it's not fine because she gets punted off the bridge, screams as she falls. However, things go a little differently because the Goblin actually stole a time dilation accelerator. That's a mouthful, right? But that thing opens up a mysterious portal and Mary Jane falls inside of it. And then we see as she's entering the portal, she's screaming, somebody please help me. But she vanishes away. And then we see that the Green Goblin starts getting sucked into the same portal. He's screaming, "Help, help me." And Spider-Man tries, but unfortunately, he's unable to save Norman before he gets sucked in as well. So then after all of that craziness, we head to Season 4, Episode 8, when Mary Jane mysteriously returns. I mean, she literally just knocks at the door, comes in and says, I don't know where I've been or what's happened. But the one thing she does know is, "I love you, Peter," as she hugs him. Well, obviously, he's so glad to have her back, so he wastes no time. By Season 4, Episode 9, he reveals his identity to her. Finally letting her know that he is Spider-Man. "Mary Jane, there's something I've got to show you." And then, once he's done that, Season 4, Episode 10, he finally proposes to MJ. "Will you marry me?" So they have a little conversation, but ultimately she says, "Of course, I'll marry you." So it looks like things are finally going their way. But of course, there's got to be somebody who's unhappy. That would be Anna Watson. By this time next month, we'll be Mr. and Mrs. Peter Parker, and she is about as upset about that as you can imagine. I'm telling you what, she hated Peter Parker so much in this series. Anyway, now, by the time we get to Season 5, Episode 1, Peter and MJ are married. Very exciting, right? In fact, by Season 5, Episode 7, they go on their honeymoon. Our marriage, these last few weeks with you, this honeymoon, these have been the best times of my life. Which of course means it's all about to go poorly, right? Because look who shows up, Maury Bench himself, the Hydro Man. So first of all, how is he back, right? Remember, he evaporated into nothingness. Well, anyway, he kidnaps MJ and takes her away. So Spider-Man obviously tracks them down, but Hydro Man gets the upper hand and looks like he might finish off Spider-Man. He says it's time to flush the bug down the drain, when suddenly MJ displays a surprisingly new ability. She's like, "Oh, is this possible? What's happening?" Yes, she is literally shooting water out of her arms. She's like Hydro Woman? I mean, what is going on, right? And in fact, MJ is just as confused as we are. "Peter, what's happening to me?" she asks. Well, by Season 5, Episode 8, we get our answer. It turns out that Professor Warren, yes, the same Professor Warren that cloned Gwen Stacy in the comics, has been doing some cloning in this series as well. He says, "My name is Professor Miles Warren, and I can actually be considered Mary Jane's father." Well, Spider-Man is very confused. He says your cloning experiments were banned by the government. Well, it turns out that he's still been working on them, illegally, and in fact, he found out that Hydro Man and his viscous ability to disassemble and reassemble himself, well, that might actually hold the key to being able to complete his cloning experiments. So he goes back to that site where, remember, Hydro Man evaporated away in hopes that there would be some of his DNA at the scene of his demise. And sure enough, he is able to create an exact duplicate. So yes, that means Hydro Man is also a clone, an exact duplicate in looks and ability, but also in his love for Mary Jane. So when he realizes Mary Jane is gone, because remember, she fell off that bridge into the portal, Hydro Man then insisted that Professor Warren clone her as well. Well, all he needed was a sample of her hair, and sure enough, he fused the viscous properties from Hydro Man's cell structure to Mary Jane's DNA to ensure the same stability. And voila, it worked beautifully. Now we have Hydro Woman. So yeah, both Hydro Man and MJ are clones. Craziness, right? Absolute craziness. But of course, MJ, even though she was a clone, still had her love for Peter Parker. And that brings us full circle to why she showed up at the door saying, "Peter, I've come back to you." And now, unfortunately, as though this wasn't crazy enough, we get some really bad news. The cloning process has proven unstable. According to my research, neither of you has much time left. So Hydro Man is the first one to evaporate away, screaming as he vanishes, and now MJ, or clone MJ, I should say, Hydro Woman, realizes that it's too late and she's falling apart. And oh my word, what a tearful goodbye, as she says, "If any part of me is anything like the real Mary Jane Watson, then she loves Peter Parker more than anything in this world." Oh man, that gets you right in the feels, right? Gets you right in the feels. So now she's gone. Basically, Spider-Man has lost her twice. All right, so while this is all going on, we have Professor Warren talking to his secret benefactor, helping him do these experiments, and he says, "Tell Silvermane that I need some repairs down here. Perhaps soon I might make some startling advances." So I'm wondering, since this was never followed up on in the original series, maybe this will play into the new comic series. We'll have to wait and see. But then, just when all seems lost, look who shows up. Good old Madam Web. No, not Sony's Madam Web, I promise. This is the actual Madam Web from the comics and the animated series. And she says, suppose that I told you I know where Mary Jane is. But first, she takes him on a 5-episode story arc, basically Secret Wars and all kinds of crazy stuff. But finally, in Season 5, Episode 13, the finale of the 5th season, she says, we're going to find the real Mary Jane Watson. It's been a long, hard journey, and I think you're finally entitled to some happiness. And then, it's over. It's canceled. No more. So we're all left wondering what happened to Mary Jane. Now, the good news is, in X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 10, we do see that Mary Jane is indeed rescued. So, all right, that was reassuring. But still, people said, no, that's not enough. You gotta tell us what happened. And so, that's why we're getting this comic series. So I think this is everything you need to know to prepare you for this series. And I cannot wait for it to come out. In fact, they've given us a couple pages from the new series. So on the left there, you can see Spider-Man and MJ swinging together. And I love this on the right. This is almost recapping the things I was telling you. In the upper left, you see the Goblin with her on top of the George Washington Bridge. Then you see her falling in the portal. Then you see him marrying the Hydra Woman clone. Then down in the lower left, you see her evaporating away. And then finally, you see Madam Web approaching him. So yeah, pretty much they're summarizing in one panel there what I discussed in much more detail. But then here's another panel. So yeah, looking really, really good. Cannot wait for this to arrive. So it looks like September 3rd of 2025 is when the first issue is coming out, and I promise you I'll be breaking it down right after it arrives. And they're promising us that we will witness this universe's debut of not one, but 2 of Spider-Man's greatest villains from the comics. So yeah, I am really, really excited. Cannot wait to see this. So very, very soon, we will get the answer of what happened to MJ. How did she get rescued? And ultimately, how does that lead into X-Men 97 Season 1, where, of course, again, we saw Spider-Man appearing. So don't forget, I do have this Google timeline document out there. It's ordered by timeline month and year, but you can sort by whatever you want. And even more importantly, you can create a temporary view. And if you chose to do one on the animated shows, well, you would get something like this. So you can check that out if you want more information. So let me know, are you excited for this new comic series? I can tell you I am. I have been waiting years to get this cliffhanger resolved, and I cannot wait. So let me know your thoughts. You know I love to read and respond to all of them. And don't forget, we have that August contest. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook. And we have the membership option in case you're interested in that. And I always love to mention the Discord. Here we are in the MCU official tie-in comic chat, and Hunter does a fantastic job with this. I'm sure he's going to be breaking down the comics just like I'll be breaking them down in the videos. Plus, I promised I would talk to you about the Doomsday Countdown Watch on the Discord. Every day listed here at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll watch a different show or movie as we prepare for the December 18, 2026 release of Doomsday. We have 2,300 members across the globe, conversations 24/7, and I'll leave a pinned comment so you can join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.